Pikmin! It's a series you've probably heard about at this point, especially if you're subscribed to a certain Blue Muppet. I've been in a very Pikmin-y mood for a while now, for quite obvious reasons, and I actually haven't really shared my thoughts about the series on this channel. So what better time to talk about the trilogy I've adored for so long than to make a video about it the week before the next game releases. So first up, Pikmin 1. I'm just using the generic series logo because Pikmin 1 doesn't really have a proper logo. Because every game after just added a number. But honestly, Pikmin 1 is a really solid game. Like always with this franchise, really good music that fits the vibe. And look, the game doesn't look the greatest, but considering it's a GameCube game, it is gorgeous. Genuinely, it is insane to think they got this on the GameCube. The footage you're seeing is from the HD remaster on the Switch, so upscaled, but still, it's a GameCube game. Don't get me wrong, GameCube is an amazing console, holds up really well. But Pikmin 1 is a really solid game. For those who don't know what Pikmin is, well, to put it simply, you're stranded on an alien planet and control this guy called Olimar. And your job as Olimar is to command an army of weird little creatures called Pikmin. Your job is to get the 30 ship parts that are scattered across the land. You have 30 days or you will die, which that time limit I think does put a lot of people off the series, but honestly, they're never that bad. Pikmin 1, you essentially need to get one collectible a day and you're fine. And you can relatively get 2 collectibles a day. Like, on a first playthrough, you might hit the 30-day mark, but you should be good. Because the vast majority of stuff you need to get done, you basically just need to do one major thing a day. But, in addition, you have an army of Pikmin. And, well, it's Pikmin. I love them. Red are extra strong and immune to fire. Yellow can be thrown further and hold bomb rocks. And blue can go in the water. Yellow have always been useless. You'll notice a pattern throughout this video, if you did not already know. But it's fun. Controlling the army's fun. Planning out your days is fun. A day is around 20 minutes, I think. And overall, it's a really solid game. There's a lot of micromanaging, and again, GameCube game, which holds up really well. I do think the GameCube generation is the first generation where games consistently hold up, and to a playable degree, without a lot of jank and issues, I personally find, for modern games. So, it's a really good game. Again, it looks beautiful with a really good OST. And it's easily the simplest Pikmin game. There's something like 5 areas, only 3 Pikmin types. Hell, it's easily the shortest. Well, overall it's the shortest. But it's a really solid game with some really fun combat, really fun puzzles, and I like it. Next up is easily Pikmin 2. The game in the series. First up, let's go over the new additions. They added 2 new Pikmin types, being purple with a 2x damage multiplier and hit like a truck, the white Pikmin which are immune to poison, a hazard you'll definitely see a lot of in these games, and added yellows the ability to be immune to electricity, a new hazard type that, unlike every other hazard type to ever exist in this series, will insta-kill any non-yellow Pikmin. They also added Louie, which means you now have 2 captains to control at once, allowing for a lot more micromanaging, which works really well for this style of game. They also removed the time limit. You have infinite days, and when you're in caves, time doesn't pass for some reason, which causes the issue of there's no reason to bother. Like, you don't need to worry about time. which is really annoying when that's one of the aspects this series does so well. Pikmin 2 is a lot larger than Pikmin 1, and I definitely do think, yes, it needs a larger time limit. Maybe make the days longer and give you more than 30 days, but I don't think you need infinite time and infinite days. In addition, the collectible has been changed from ship parts to treasures, which in the GameCube and Wii version are mostly product placement. The vast majority of them got changed in the Switch version, for obvious reasons of I don't think Nintendo wants to bother relicensing contract deals they did 2 decades ago. But honestly, I really liked that about the Wii version, which is the one I mainly played, because it adds more depth to this world. Because, by the way, this is a post-apocalyptic Earth. Yeah, that's never mentioned directly, but it's pretty obvious when the first collectible in this game is a Duracell battery. I know it's different depending on region, but in North America, it's a Duracell battery. But, honestly, those are some pretty cool collectibles. But, of course, then you have the main issue with this game, which I already partly addressed. Caves and balancing. Red Pikmin, basically useless since all of their traits aside from fire have been given to purple Pikmin. And fire isn't that big of a threat in this game because it doesn't insta-kill. As for blue Pikmin, there really aren't many water hazards in the caves, which, by the way, are procedurally generated. Of course they are. And white Pikmin, they're good at digging. And that leaves yellow and purple. Purple, 10 times as strong as normal Pikmin in terms of carry weight, and 2 times damage multiplier. They can kill almost anything. And yellows are immune to the only insta-kill in the entire game. Any other hazard, you can get your Pikmin out of there if you have the right reaction time and know what you're doing. Specifically lightning or electricity, nope. Which also means for the final boss, which wields all of the elements, you just bring yellows and purples. Because if it hits you with fire, just call them back. But if it hits you with electricity, unless it's a yellow, you're screwed. Basically, the balancing in this game is kind of horrible. And I don't think that's the game's fault entirely. They tried to buff yellows, which I do think they needed a buff. But purples, specifically, are way too broken, and electricity being an insta-kill hazard ruins a lot of that balance. If you just made it so electricity didn't insta-kill, like in Pikmin 3, it'd be a lot less of a big deal. Pikmin 2 is easily the worst game in the main Pikmin trilogy, but frankly, I still really like it. It's not the greatest, and it's pretty easily the weakest. But considering the next game we're about to talk about is top tier for me, and Pikmin 1 is a really solid foundation to an incredible series, it's kind of hard to have it be awful, because it's still completely playable and really enjoyable. Next up is Pikmin 3, which is an amazing game. I didn't really touch on graphics in Pikmin 2 because it used the same engine as Pikmin 1, but Pikmin 3 is beautiful. Genuinely, it is one of those games that goes, yeah, you know how Nintendo's notoriously underpowered? Well, they can still have gorgeous games. It runs at 30 FPS, but honestly, that isn't a big deal for a game that is a slower paced game and not an action game. But in this game, we have an all-new cast of characters, and you now control 3 captains at once. And now you can also control them remotely. The new types of Pikmin being rock and winged, with purple and white being gone from the main story. But, of course, that isn't all. The game follows a bit more of a linear progression this time. Instead of just get the collectibles, it's do things. But it actually works in Pikmin 3's favor because of its style. Because there's the main story items you need to collect, and the main collectible of the game being fruits. And you know how I mentioned timers in Pikmin 1? Yeah, this game's timer, you have 3 days. Yeah, not a lot. But by collecting fruit, you get more, which adds so much. Because do you try to rush the main story, or do you try to make it so you can survive longer? Do you think you can make it to the next boss before you run out of food? It adds a very, very fun risk and reward and choice element to the game, which helps it so much. It also gives it a very lenient time system that's completely at the player's control. And hell, the game even accounts for the fact that by near the end of the game, you probably have infinite food and you don't need to worry. And it accounts for that by taking more food from you at a certain point in the story. In fact, there's even a hard mode which makes it so food gives less. So it really adds a lot. Also, difficulty settings exist in the Switch version, which make enemies tougher and resources more scarce. In addition, the new Pikmin types feel relatively balanced. Rock Pikmin replace purples, but they don't have the strength, but they can break through glass. And in terms of damage, they do hit harder on initial contact, but they can't latch on to enemies like the other types of Pikmin. And similar case for Winged. They, while being incredibly powerful, can barely attack, having a 0.5 multiplier on their damage. But in exchange, they can take a lot of shortcuts when delivering items to your base. And basically every type of Pikmin got buffed, with the exception of Yellows. Yellows got slightly more nerfed, but electricity is just less of an annoying hazard in this game. That's their nerf. And Reds now have their damage purposes back. And in addition, Blues can now swim, which actually means they're even more helpful underwater than they were in the previous games. The game has the best bosses in the entire series, and in addition, an entire challenge mode with a bunch of finely tuned mini maps. And those maps are so fun. Genuinely, they alone add so much replay value to the game, because they're like 10-15 minute maps that are relatively small, but they are jam-packed with things you need to do, and it is so fun to try to get a good score on them. Pikmin 3 is a game I adore, and is easily my favorite in the series. There was no question on picking up Pikmin 3 Deluxe or not. Just it existing was worth picking up. Partly because I was horribly starved for content, and also partly because I genuinely do adore this game, and frankly, just having an easier way to play it without having to pull out the Wii U makes it worth it. Honestly, I just wanted to discuss the Pikmin series, especially since I'll be taking my time with Pikmin 4, so you probably won't hear anything on that for a while. Either way, what are your guys' thoughts? If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing since it helps out the channel a ton. I'll see you guys in the next one.